Hello and welcome to Extra Innings. I am your host, Van Noland, alongside Owen Noland and Anthony Remedios. We have a special playoff edition of Extra Innings. Last week's edition was on a Monday night before the wildcard games had even been played. So we have a full wildcard recap, as well as a NL and ALDS recap in this episode. We will also give you our predictions for the coming rounds of the playoffs. So that is what is on tap tonight. Anthony is our special guest. Anthony, this is your first time on the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey there, everybody. I'm Anthony Remedios. I was at SBC camp this year for the first time. Had a great time. I actually did get a chance to join on the SBC edition of this show, so it's not totally my first rodeo, and I've also been following most of the episodes since then as well. I've also been a part of Wilson Kahn's Power Hour show a couple times from August 19th and September 16th. And then I also just started on Sunday and just now my own show, Fantasy Sports with AR. So I love sports, been around it for a long time. Big Giants fan. So with the Jets they're not in the playoffs this year, hopefully that means I won't be buying.
All right. Well, it is great to have you on the podcast and great to have you a part of the NSR team.
Thank you.
So we are going to start with the wild card recap. Last Tuesday was the National League wild card, and what a crazy way to start the postseason. What a great way to start the postseason it was. We reported last week that the Rockies lost to the Dodgers, and the Cubs lost to the Brewers, so those two teams would match up in the wild card round of the playoffs. I just wanted to say, when is my Tony Wolters segment? That's coming up here soon. Don't worry, Owen. But the Rockies and the Cubs played at Wrigley, the 2018 NL wild card game. The Rockies scored in the first inning of the game thanks to Charlie Blackmon hit, a DJ LeMahieu hit, and then a Nolan Arenado sac fly. And then the Rockies win it, go on to score again for a long time, a very long time, before the Tony Wolters base hit in the 13th. It's something about the 13th inning of play-in games for the Colorado Rockies. If you're not a Colorado Rockies fan, in 2007, Jamie Carroll came up with the game-winning sacrifice fly in the 13th off of future Hall of Fame closer Trevor Hoffman, who was then playing for the Padres. Matt Holliday definitely touched home plate, and the rest in that 2007 season is history. But to this 2018 season, it was Tony Wolters who came up with a 2-out, 2-strike single up the middle, scoring Trevor Story, thus advancing the Colorado Rockies to the National League Division Series.
That was an exciting game. I was actually texting, I think it was Owen that I was texting, and we were like, oh, we low-key should have done a show tonight as well, because after all, the show is Extra Innings. So I just thought that was clever. But we were like, man, there's no need for 2 in a row. But it was an interesting game. That's been my favorite game pretty much from the whole baseball season altogether. Just really a duel between the two teams.
Yes. We also had a great pitching matchup in that game. Kyle Freeland was on the mound for the Rockies.
That's right.
And John Lester on the mound for the Cubs. John Lester, one of the greatest postseason pitchers of our generation. Nothing about that has changed. But Kyle Freeland, heck of a performance outpitched, at least in my opinion, John Lester last Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the Rockies, if you think about it, really outdueled two of the better pitchers, two potential Hall of Fame or borderline Hall of Fame pitchers in that game, Cole Hamels and John Lester, both pitched significant innings. So it was at that point as a...
I was happy to see the Rockies win that. Just because the Cubs have been there, and personally, for me, I felt like the Cubs were overrated. People are forgetting that this isn't the same team that won the World Series 2 years ago. They don't have Arrieta. Even Lester, to be honest, I feel like it's kind of dropped off since then as well. That's just my opinion.
Yes, I would agree. I think the numbers would back that up a little bit. I'm not saying Lester is a bad pitcher by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think he's his same dominant self. That... Oh, and do you want to have your Tony Walters segment right now?
Yes, now would be a great time to talk about Tony Walters, the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball. I say that as a very biased Tony Walters fan. I've always been a fan of the former Akron Rubber Duck when he was in the Cleveland Indians organization. Tony Walters, the converted middle infielder, what a story. He came onto the Rockies roster in 2016 as the backup to the most useless... Nick Hundley, who now is the catcher for the Giants. Tony Walters was the backup that season in 2016. The Rockies had 75 wins. Van wants to interrupt me, so I will let him right now.
Since we have a Giants fan on the podcast, Anthony, what are your thoughts on Nick Hundley?
I like him. I will say the Wade Hundley incident, that was not his fault. That was, I think, Puig's, but that was a while ago. But overall, I like him as a player and definitely see him being definitely kind of taking over the day-to-day. Well, not necessarily day-to-day. We still have Posey, but definitely we can see him, I think, taking some more time behind the dish, especially as we get ready for Joey Bart coming up in a few years. I can see. I don't really see Posey going anywhere personally, but I do feel like eventually he'll probably take first base more. We saw that quite a bit this year.
Yeah, I don't think.
First instead of Bell.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants will do anything with Posey. I think he's the one player in the lineup that's there to stay through the rebuild. But Owen, back to your Tony.
Don't forget about Crawford. Don't forget about.
Oh yeah, Brandon Crawford. I could see. Yeah, and I don't know what you guys are doing.
Honestly, besides that, the rest of the team, we need a new team.
Yeah.
Look, I liked Pence as a player. I liked Pence when he was good as a player, and as a person, I liked him and still like him. But I've been saying for a while that it was his time.
Yes.
It was his time. So.
Yeah. Oh, and back to your Tony Walters story.
Yes, where did I leave off on
the 75 win 2016 Rockies?
Yes, and then we went into 2017. We let go of Nick Hundley. Nick Hundley, I believe, signed as a free agent with... I know he signed with the Giants. I don't think we traded him. He was a free agent. That's correct. We let him go, and the plan was to have Tony Walters start as our opening day catcher, which he did. He split time that year with Tom and Murphy. Is that correct? There was someone else. Dustin Garneau, maybe, who's since been released and I think is catching in the Mariners organization. But Tony Walters was our starting catcher at the beginning of 2017, but the Rockies decided, let's go out and trade for Jonathan Lucroy at the trade deadline and send Tony Walters down to AAA.
Ryan Hannigan.
Oh, Ryan Hannigan, that's right. I forgot about him. Another useless catcher. Another catcher that we acquired. Tony Walters was clearly the best catcher on that 2017 team. It was not Jonathan Lucroy, despite what everyone else will tell you. Yeah, Vane is laughing. That's how you know I'm only partially kidding about this. They decided we can't send Hannigan or Lucroy down to AAA, so let's send Tony Wolters down to AAA, making it completely unfair to every other pitcher in the AAA. Well, maybe not so much, but Tony Wolters was sent down for a brief period of time in 2017 before coming back up.
That was his first time at AAA, correct?
It was. I don't think he'd ever played at AAA, proving again how good he is. Only good players skip AAA, like, let's see, Troy Tulowitzki's one that's on the list. But Ubaldo Jimenez is another guy that skipped AAA. Kyle Freeland, Herman Marquez, I don't think ever pitched at AAA. But back to the greatest catcher of all time, Tony Wolters. In 2018, the Rockies signed Chris Iannetta, who I actually liked. He's got some power. I thought he would hit for a higher average than he did this year, which was kind of disappointing as a Rockies fan to see. But Tony Wolters came into the year as the primary catcher for one John Gray. John Gray, as Rockies fans know, had his struggles. It's since come out, he's talked about this since the season ended on Sunday. He lost 20 pounds during the year, which is not good as a pitcher. You want to keep up that weight so you can keep up your velocity. When your velocity dips, obviously your fastball isn't going to be as effective. So John Gray says he's going to try to put on the weight this offseason and keep it next year to hopefully have a better 2019. But that left a spot for Tony Wolters to take over as the primary catcher for Herman Marquez, who I think will be the ace of the Rockies staff for years to come, which means Tony Wolters might have a job with the Rockies for as long as Herman Marquez is in the purple pinstripes. Tony Wolters served primarily as a backup, although splitting time with Chris Iannetta and then Drew Butera when we acquired him in August. Why we need a third catcher, I don't know. Why we need Drew Butera on our roster, I still don't know. Why he came in the wildcard game to catch Adam Ottavino instead of Tony Wolters, I don't know. Don't ask me, ask Buddy Black. But Tony Wolters did eventually get his chance to come in that wildcard game, and he made Bud Black look like an absolute genius when he put Tony Wolters in for Drew Butera, who had no business being on the field when you've got Tony Wolters on your team. Tony Wolters came through with the hit, the 2-out, 2 RBI hit to send the Rockies to the division series. And then if you watch the interview afterwards, he said all the right things. He did everything right. Tony Wolters, the greatest catcher in baseball history. Now we resume with your regularly scheduled programming. Do we have any regularly scheduled programming, or is that just the Tony Wolters show? It seems like the Tony Wolters show.
It might as well be. But we have to get to we still haven't even gotten to the American League wild card game.
That's because it's not as important as Tony Wolters.
Hey, you went a little over your time slot there, Owen.
I didn't know I had a time slot. I wasn't aware of this. Nobody warned me of this. Who was our producer?
I'm the producer.
Oh.
But we now have to get to the
Wait, can I say one thing? For a complete history of Tony Wolters, you could probably go to his Wikipedia page, but that's not a reliable source. Do not use it on any essays that you're going to write in school.
Okay, on to the American League wildcard game. It's not going to stay up with it. On to the American League wildcard game. The Athletics and the Yankees and everybody outside of New York was rooting for the Athletics. Because, we all love the underdog team, the Oakland A's, an incredible story. The lowest payroll in the major leagues. A lot of underdogs start the year off hot and then can just ride that through the rest of the year. No, the A's had to come back and overcome the Mariners, beat the Astros multiple times, including getting a tie for first place in August, to get to the point that they were at. So an incredible season for the A's. But the Yankees were just too much at home in the postseason.
Guys, I've come to a great revelation. Anthony, I think you're named after the greatest catcher of all time. Tony Wolters, his real name, or full name, is Anthony John Wolters. So you might be named after the greatest catcher of all time. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah.
We need to turn up the volume. I'm not sure they can hear Anthony. Turn up the volume on the phone, man.
Okay. All right. But back to the American League wildcard game. The Yankees just at home too much in the playoffs with Luis Severino on the mound. The Oakland A's were bullpenning the game, starting with the opener, which I thought was very interesting. I still think that's the future of baseball. But it kind of put some doubt in my mind about that because the bullpenning did not work as well as I think the A's anticipated. Anthony, what were your thoughts on just anything about the AL wildcard game?
I actually thought going into it, the A's were going to win. For some reason, I think I underestimated the A's and their talent because last year, as I'm sure you all remember, we would get these notifications on our phones about Judge home run, Sanchez home run, all these they had power hitting, and they signed Stanton in the offseason too. Didn't have as great of a year, but you're coming off 60 home run season almost, pitching chance in that game. I was actually surprised that they even made it. I remember when we were at camp and I'm looking at the standings and I'm like, really? The A's are that good? And I picked them for a wild card and didn't just be in it and thought they would win it, but I think their bullpen idea against the Yankees, against Severino, more importantly, not a great idea. I mean, it was already tuned out at the end of the first inning, I think, right?
Yeah, it was. So
I don't think that was a smart move on their end. But you know what? Here's what I've been saying about the A's. They're an up-and-coming team. I didn't see them making a deep run this year against the talented Boston and Houston. Even Cleveland had that talent, but I didn't see them making a deep run. But talk about in the next 3 years, yeah, they're going to be there. They have chances, especially if they can get some nice things.
yeah, I don't know if you really underestimated the Yankees or if the Yankees really just had a good game, right? Retrospective, we can look back on it now. It's 2020, seeing what happened to the Yankees against the Red Sox, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you were right about their talent evaluation. They might have just had one of the better games of the season against the Oakland Athletics, and that's sort of how baseball goes sometimes. That's why even the worst team wins 60 games a year. So sometimes you can be the more talented team out there and not win. But let's move on to the...
The thing about baseball and the postseason in general, it's really about getting hot with the right guys at the right time. And that really goes from all the second half. We saw where the A's started the All-Star break. We saw where they finished. It was about getting hot with the right guys at the right time.
Yes, that is definitely true. So now let's move to the American League Division Series. Let's start with the Astros and the Indians because there is not a whole lot to talk about. If I'm being honest, I did not get to watch as much of this series as I would have liked. It was on during the afternoons, and I had school a lot of the time, so I was unable.
All the time?
I had school during the afternoons all the time, yes. So I could not watch this series as much as I would have liked. But I don't really think I missed out on a whole lot. The Astros are still really, really good, and the Indians maybe a little overhyped, maybe because of the division they play in, but still missing a few pieces to really compete. But the Astros did what they did, and they have gotten back to the American League Championship Series one step closer to repeating as champions. Alex Bregman had a good series, and the Astros pitching was just dominant for the whole series. Now to the Yankees-Red Sox series, which ended last night. The Yankees won one game in the series. The Red Sox won the other three.
Let's be aware, though, that the Friday night game, I believe that was game 1, I would like to think, right? Game 1 was on Friday of that series. Or was that Game 2?
I think that was game 1 on Friday.
Yeah, game 1 was on Friday.
Yeah. That one was close for you. The Yankees were down, 5-1, and they finished 5-4. And they had it, and they were going in that ninth inning. They had a good part of it. They were coming up, Justin Stanton.
Yes, they had a great comeback that fell just a bit short in that one. And like you mentioned, they had a chance late in the game with Judge and Stanton coming up, but were unable to get it done, which would have been a steal to win Game 1 on the road.
Yeah. Then let's talk about in this game, wise, that there was we had something that we've never seen before in baseball, and that was someone hitting for the cycle in the postseason. We've never seen that.
Yes, Brock Holt hit for the cycle. Let's see, that was on Monday night. Becoming the first player in postseason history to hit for the cycle. He did so after hitting a home run against a position player who became the first position player, I believe, to pitch in the postseason. Am I correct on that, Vin?
I don't know, actually.
Who was it that came in to pitch? I don't even remember now. The position player that came in to pitch. Go to the box score.
Austin Romine.
Oh, Austin Romine.
Austin Romine pitched the catcher. That's really interesting. Why would you have your catcher pitch? What if you need him later the next day?
I doubt you would need him when you're down 16.
This goes back to the... I saw something on Twitter about how Alex Cora, the Red Sox manager, was figuratively pushing all the right buttons, and Aaron Boone couldn't even... Was it?
He couldn't find the buttons.
Yeah, he couldn't find the buttons. So
he didn't know
even
which buttons to press, and
sort of looked lost up there. I think this sort of plays into that, too. Like, of all the players on your team, maybe you put an outfielder up there. Outfielders usually have strong arms. Not that a catcher doesn't, or not that any major league player doesn't have a strong arm, but maybe you put your fifth outfielder in.
It is funny, though, seeing how position players pitch, though. We saw it quite a bit this year. And on there once, and they put Chase Darno on there, I think.
Yeah.
Every time. And we're seeing it in the postseason, which you don't even see it too happen too much in general, but then to see it in the postseason is kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining, to say the least. And then that series wrapped up last night. The Red Sox winning 4-3. They were up 4-1 heading into the bottom of the ninth. The Yankees had the bases loaded. They scored a run on a sac fly and then had the winning run just 180 feet away at second base. A single would score him.
Actually,
Almost.
Wasn't bases loaded at the end of that game?
There was bases loaded, and then they hit the sacrifice fly, and then they scored a run. So then there were runners on first and second. So, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Rick Porcello got the start for the Red Sox, and he pitched well, like he always seems to do in the postseason. But Cecil Sabathia, the second shortest outing of his postseason career, pulled after just 3. Craig Kimbrell worked out of trouble in the ninth for the Red Sox and got the save. The Red Sox beat the rival in just 4 games to advance to the ALCS, so that sets up a Red Sox and Astros ALCS. Anthony, I'm going to start with you. Who do you have winning the Red Sox-Astros ALCS matchup?
is he still there, Anthony?
Yeah, sorry about that. You're asking my picks on the ALCS, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Boston on this one, and that's not just they're the 1 seed. I've been saying Boston really for the Derby. I've been saying that since camp, so 2 months now. hard for me to go away from that pick. I just really see that Boston's a good team. Houston's a good team too, though. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Be a good series, definitely going 6 or 7 games. And that's what we like to see at this point. Personally, in general, I think the division series this year weren't really that interesting. I mean, you have 2 sweeps and 2 3-1 series. And probably the best one of that was the Yankees, Red Sox, mainly for the rivalry. So I think we're at the point where we're going to see some good freaking baseball that we've been looking to see all year. So I'm going to go with Boston over Houston on this one. But hey, Houston's got a good team. It's going to, I think it's really going to come down to pitching in both of these LCS series.
Yes, I'm very excited.
People are saying that Boston's pitching isn't that dominant, but I'm really quite noticing that. They have the pitchers who will come clutch. Plus, the game 1 matchup, you got Verlander and Sale. So it's a 2.11 ERA this year. So that's looking pretty hopeful for the Red Sox. But then again, Verlander, 16 and 9, and had a 2.52 ERA. So it's really going to come down to that, and I think the offense is really what's going to carry the championship series on both sides.
Yes, I am very excited to watch this series play out. Oh, and real quick, give me your prediction. Who wins?
I am going to pick the Houston Astros to win the American League Championship Series for one reason and one reason only. Their pitching is, I believe, better than the Boston Red Sox pitching, and I will take run prevention over run production every single day of the weekend for the 149 years of baseball history. Run prevention has been much better than run production. So because of that, I think the Houston Astros will win it in 6 games.
Yes, I will also agree with you, Owen. I think the Astros win the series. I think the Astros, if they're going to need to steal one in Boston early, which will put them in a good position. So I think they can do that. Sweeping the Indians obviously helps. It gives them the extra day of rest that I think they need, being the road team in the ALCS. So I think the sweep allows them to start Verlander and just go with the normal rotation. Whereas the Red Sox brought in Chris Sale. We'll see what the Red Sox do with their rotation. That'll be interesting. But I think I like the Astros bullpen at this point. I think they've improved a lot over the course of the year. This Astros bullpen is not the same bullpen we saw at the beginning of the year. But I think the lineup for Houston has been hitting really well lately. The Red Sox have been winning games, but the offense for the Red Sox has not been quite as dominant, I think, as the Astros. So that's why I am going to go with the Astros. Now it is time for the... Go ahead.
With the Red Sox, I'm looking forward to seeing their offense. You got J.D. Martinez on that lineup, who hasn't quite been as dominant hitting-wise, but he hit it there. I don't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but he hit like 30-something home runs, I think. Let me see here. 33 home runs. 33 home runs this year, which is still great. And you got Mookie Betts on that team, too, so definitely something.
Yes, should be very interesting. But now it is time for the NLDS recap. Let's go. Start on Thursday. We're going to start with the Dodgers and the Braves, because I know we'll spend a lot of time talking about the Rockies and the Brewers, even though that might have been...
No, we won't. We don't want to talk about that one.
Okay, but we'll start with the...
I'm kidding. We'll talk about it. Don't worry, guys.
We'll start with the Dodgers and the Braves. The Dodgers handled the Braves pretty easily, winning the first 2 games of the series at home. The Braves didn't even score a run.
They really should have gotten the sweep on that one.
Yes, I think they should have as well. The Dodgers scored 6 runs in game 1, half as many in Game 2, but still got the shutout victory. Game 3 was a different story. Back at home, the Braves were inspired. Touki Toussaint pitching got the win for the Braves. But the Braves really came through. Ronald Acuna Jr. had the huge grand slam for the Braves. That's really the reason they won. They won by just one run. So all those runs were necessary.
And the Freddie Freeman homer, too.
Freddie Freeman homer was also big. But the Braves won just 4 hits, though. Still manufactured 6 runs, and that's what gives you hope as a Braves fan, still finding ways to score runs. But Game 4 was also in Atlanta. The Dodgers won that game, and they clinched the series. They won that game by a score of 6-2. So if the Braves hadn't scored 6 runs in Game 3 and 2 runs in Game 4, their offense would not have been looking quite as good. But really surprising year. Not a lot of people at the Braves winning the NL East. I know I certainly didn't. Hats off.
I think I may have had them finishing in last, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, you might have. But a really young Braves team showed a lot of promise, a lot of heart, a lot of hustle in that team. Look out for them in years to come. But now to the last NLDS series that we have to recap. The Brewers and the Rockies. The Milwaukee Brewers swept the Colorado Rockies. Very, very disappointing to see as a Rockies fan. But the Rockies played. You can go ahead.
For me in that series, I didn't really get a chance to see a lot, but we did see an extra inning game in Game 1. That went 10 innings, and the Brewers won 3-2. That was really correct that you guys probably watched this a lot closer than I did. That series, there really wasn't a whole lot that went on. The Brewers are just that big of a team. Really, it's a sweep. Nobody likes seeing a sweep in the postseason. But in these earlier rounds, it's kind of expected.
Yes. The Brewers won Game 1. Brewers had been up 2-0 the majority of the game. The Rockies scored 2 runs in the 9th. Charlie Blackmon was on third. Got caught in a pickle trying to score on a ground ball to the first baseman.
But to be fair, if he doesn't run on contact there, you ground into an inning-ending double play there.
Yeah. So the Rockies did have the 3rd run on third base in the 9th inning. That was disappointing as a Rockies fan. After fighting down from being down 2-0, I think that really changed the series. But Ottavino, I don't like Bud Black's decision to leave Ottavino in there in the 10th inning. It obviously did end up costing them the game, and it's easy to say that looking back at it now. But
yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but really, foresight might be 20/20 in that situation too. Ottavino has struggled coming in after having already pitched in the previous inning. He struggled in second innings of his outing. He struggled under pressure this year. So why Bud Black chose to leave him in the game in that situation, I do not know.
And you still have Wade Davis and Sewano in the bullpen ready to go.
Yes, you've still got 2 good relievers in the bullpen ready to go, ready to pitch, and you continue to put Ottavino out there. I don't know why. Bud Black really got outmanaged this series by Craig Counsell, who, you said that thing about pushing all the right buttons. Craig Counsell did that, and Bud Black,
he found a few buttons.
Him and Aaron Boone are going to have to go on a scavenger hunt for the right buttons this offseason.
Yeah, I guess. But games 2 and 3 for the Rockies were even worse. This podcast scored as many runs as the Rockies did in those 2 games. The Brewers won 4-0 in Game 2. Yoelis Chacin has had a really good postseason. If the Brewers go on to win the NLCS and Chacin continues to pitch, has one more outing like he's pitched so far, actually I guess the Cubs game wasn't a playoff game, but you'd have to give Chacin the MVP, I think.
It depends what other players do. Mike Moustakas has had a good postseason so far.
I mean, Christian Yelich was over 3 on Sunday, so...
Yeah, actually over 4, I think.
And all the Brewers fans continue to chant MVP. Meanwhile, he's going 0 for, which was kind of ironic. And then Story doubles in the 9th. And, of course, all of us, the Rockies fans, started chanting MVP for Story.
And the ball went off Yelich's glove, too.
Oh, yeah, which makes it even more ironic. So, the thing about this series, the Rockies' offense was bad, but the Brewers' pitching was good. Whenever your team loses, you like to blame your team and not give credit where credit is due to the other team. The Rockies' offense was bad. That is a fact. The Brewers' pitching is good. That is also a fact. Both those things can be true at the same time. The Brewers have a great bullpen, and you saw it in Game 1 when they had a bullpen day and shut down the Rockies for the better half of 10 innings.
This gives me hope for bullpen games. The opener is the future of baseball.
Yes, the opener bullpen games is definitely the future of baseball.
I think it being used...
And if you don't think it is, look at what the Rays did winning over 90 games and having a 2-something ERA since they started implementing the bullpen games.
Yeah. So, and I think it's also cool that it's being used on the national level in postseason play. So... I'm sure we'll have a lot of great discussions about that in the off season. But now it's time to get to our predictions for the NLCS. Anthony, we are going to start with you. Brewers, Dodgers, who do you have winning and why?
So, here's the thing. The Brewers, I said at camp, I know I'm going back to a lot of those predictions, but I just find it ironic. A lot of them were right. I said at camp the Brewers were going to win the division. That's before I really had a good look at their roster. I knew they had Aguilar, who was totally forgot about some of their other guys. And actually going up until that time for the game on the Monday last week, I thought the Braves were going to be the ones to come out with it. But then I saw the Brewers in that tiebreaker game. I'm like, oh crap, they're good. And I'm like, these guys are going to be the sleeper team. So I picked them when I made my bracket that night. I actually had them going for the World Series, losing Boston. So in this series here with the Dodgers, like I said in the AL, it's going to come down to the offense. This is really going to be another good series that's going to go. I think it's going to go 7 games. The Dodgers, their bullpen is kind of weak, especially their closing step. The good news is they're not in Colorado, so they don't have to worry about not having Jansen. But I just think that the Brewers are going to win, but it'll be close. So really, 6 and 7 game series, that's what we want to see at this point. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I don't anticipate any of these being a sweeper. Being a 5-game series.
Yes, I agree. I think the Milwaukee Brewers will win the National League Championship Series over the Los Angeles Dodgers because the Brewers have such a good pitching staff and bullpen. Once they get to the 7th inning with the lead, the game is essentially over.
Once they get to the 5th inning with the lead.
Yes, although that's not necessarily true. The Rockies, that team's got a lot of grit. They came back in the 9th inning after having done nothing the previous 8. But I don't think the Dodgers have that kind of grit that the Rockies did. And the Brewers, Josh Hader is the best relief pitcher in baseball. Just watching him pitch, he's throwing 99 with a weird and unorthodox delivery. Almost impossible to hit. You've got him, you've got Jeffress, I think is their closer. That's who they used in the Colorado series. That bullpen for Milwaukee, I think, is the best in baseball, hands down. And for that reason, I give them the edge over the Dodgers in the NLCS, I think. Brewers in 7.
I am going to have to disagree with you. I'm going to pick the Dodgers to win.
That's shocking to me.
No,
actually.
I don't think it's shocking.
The Brewers are built on run prevention. The
Dodgers are built to win games. The Los Angeles Dodgers have the best closer in all of baseball, Kenley Jansen.
Who gave up 2 home runs in a 5-0 game to the Rockies last week. He has not been his normal self.
You have not seen Kenley Jansen on the biggest moment. He's able to handle the pressure. He got them. He was part of the NL championship team last year. I think he gets them back to the World Series. So I actually realized I predicted a rematch. Interesting. But I think the Dodgers have the most talent in baseball, and I don't think they've even come close to reaching their ceiling yet all year long. I thought the Dodgers would run away with the NL West at the trade deadline. They haven't done that, and they didn't do that. It took them 163 games to finish off the Rockies. But I think they're getting hot at the right time, beating the Braves. The pitching came together. The offense put it together as well. So I think the Dodgers are just hitting their peak now, and that is a very dangerous thing. So that's why I'm going to have to go with the Dodgers in the LCS.
How many games do you think?
I'll say 7. I think it'll go 7, but I think
this will be a very competitive series.
Yes.
Both teams are pretty evenly matched, at least on paper.
yes.
Yeah.
So
What I'm most looking forward to from the Brewers is seeing Yelich. That guy has just been on fire for them lately. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. But I'm not going to degrade the Dodgers offense. That's why I say this series will also be another one that comes down to it. Because on the Dodgers, you got Machado who's up. You have Jock Peterson. You have Muncy. You have even Bellinger's been putting something up most of the time. Dozier, I will say, has underperformed, I think, since the Dodgers got him. He hasn't really done a lot. And there's a couple other guys, too. But the Dodgers, they have a good offense, too.
yes.
The Brewers are a little bit shy.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers have a very talented team out there in Los Angeles. But I think that will do it for our show this week. Next week we will be back on Tuesday at the normal time at the same place. We would like to thank you for listening whenever and however. For Anthony and Owen, I am Van Noland, and you have been listening to Extra Innings on National Sports Radio.